All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Fight day is finally here. Could not be more excited, but before that, I've got two subjects I want to talk about, so I'm going to do them in two separate videos. The first one, which will be this one, is Stipe Miocic has said that he was promised the winner of the fight between Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight title. Now, there are probably a lot of people that disagree with this decision by the UFC. I don't, though, because I think this is a really good business move, and I'm going to explain why. But before I do, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will thank you in advance for your subscription. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Okay, now let's just get right into it. So, as I said, Stipe Miocic, there was a heavyweight Q&A that they did yesterday, featuring Daniel Cormier, Curtis Blades, Stipe Miocic, and I think there was Mark Coleman was up there, and there was one other guy, and I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But Stipe Miocic said that he was promised by the UFC the winner of Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane in International Fight Week in July for the heavyweight title. Now, as I said, some of you may disagree with this decision, and it is a little strange actually, because if you think about, like, Sergey Pavlovich just came and weighed in as a backup, right? And typically when guys do that, they get rewarded with like a title shot. So maybe not in the case of Anthony Smith because he missed weight, but we saw Alexander Volkanovski weigh in as a backup for Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, and then we saw him get the very next title shot against Islam. This is typically like, if you do that favor for the UFC, they'll return the favor, and you're essentially next in line for the title now. Sergey Pavlovich apparently is getting left out of that conversation, and I think I'm going to tell you, or I think I know why. Now, if you look at it from a business perspective, you've got Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane. Their A plan, like the plan that they hope happens, I think anyways, obviously my opinion, like I said, is that Jon Jones wins against Ciryl Gane, okay? And then his next fight is for the heavyweight championship, obviously him defending his title against the quote-unquote heavyweight GOAT. Or at least that's how the UFC markets Stipe Miocic. I'm sure there are people that don't agree with that take that he is the heavyweight GOAT. I kind of do, at least in regards to the UFC, because he has the most title defenses, and he's got a win over Francis Ngannou, which nobody else in the heavyweight division has right now. And yeah, I mean, his resume is extremely impressive. 2 wins over Daniel Cormier, one in a spectacular finish, one, long fought war. But yeah, so if Jon Jones wins against Ciryl Gane, okay, Jon Jones, who is already a star, will be an even bigger star because now he's undebatably the GOAT with the heavyweight championship. He now has 2 titles, or had 2 titles in 2 separate weight classes, and he will be fighting for the heavyweight GOAT. Now, if Jon Jones beats the heavyweight GOAT, fucking rocket ship, my guy. Like, the next fights that they'll be able to line up with Jon Jones as heavyweight champion, it doesn't matter who the contenders are, they will be blockbuster events. And the reason why I think that they're trying to go this route is because they want that added star power from whoever wins this fight beating the heavyweight GOAT before they create these pay-per-view events that are revolving around contenders that don't really have massive fan bases, that aren't necessarily pay-per-view stars or even really superstars at all. So if Jon Jones beats Ciryl, he fights Stipe. If he beats Stipe, I mean, they can do Jon Jones versus Curtis Blades. They can do Jon Jones versus Sergey Pavlovich. They can do Jon Jones versus Sergey Spivak. They can start building his legacy at heavyweight. And because of those 2 wins, they will all be massive blockbuster events. Now, B plan, right? Ciryl Gane beats Jon Jones. He then gets the rub. His notoriety will go through the roof if he beats Jon Jones. He will have beaten the GOAT, right, of the sport, and then he will be fighting the heavyweight GOAT. And then if he beats the heavyweight GOAT, well, he's just beaten 2 GOATs, and now they can market the shit out of Ciryl Gane, who has a massive fan base in France and probably other parts of Europe and stuff like that. So while there may be guys right now that are more deserving of a title shot, although pardon me, I kind of thought that Stipe, if anybody deserves a trilogy match against, it could have been him versus Francis, but Francis left, and that's actually what my next video is going to be about, something Dana White said in that regard. But man, Ciryl Gane would be a huge star as well. if he beat Jon Jones and then also went out there and beat Stipe Miocic. Now, obviously, they would probably prefer Jon Jones to win. And if all their plans go awry, the worst case scenario is that Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight GOAT, ends up with the belt. And then every pay-per-view they build, every pay-per-view they build off of that will be whoever's fighting for the heavyweight title is fighting the heavyweight GOAT. And then eventually the person to beat him will get the rub from the heavyweight GOAT, right? So while it may seem disrespectful to a guy like Curtis Blades or Sergey Pavlovich or any of these guys, I think in the long run, if they don't retire in that time, it could potentially make them more money because the pay-per-views will be bigger. Like, everything about it will be bigger if they do that. Now, because honestly, dude, if Jon Jones, and also it's probably the least risky move, right? If Jon Jones goes out there and beats Ciryl Gane, okay, fantastic. And then they give him Sergey Pavlovich next. Well, what happens if Sergey Pavlovich goes out there and just destroys him in like 45 seconds, just knocks him out like he's been doing to everybody else? Now, the chances of that happening aren't necessarily likely, I guess, you could say, because Jon Jones is a very good defensive fighter. We have still yet to see him at heavyweight, so it's to be determined, but it would be kind of unfortunate for the UFC because Sergey Pavlovich isn't this huge star yet, right? And then he goes and destroys, and also they can't really, I mean, it would just, it wouldn't look good, right? And then they wouldn't really be able to build pay-per-views off of it. They would only have, and maybe they could give Jon a rematch, which would build some hype, but I think the safest bet for the UFC in terms of long-term, like trying to fix the heavyweight division, trying to get the heavyweight division back to a point where it is a big pay-per-view seller, because despite what a lot of people think, Chael Sonnen said this in his video, I've said it in multiple videos, Francis Ngannou was not a pay-per-view star, which is why I think he made a huge mistake. I'm going to talk about that in my next video, though. But, so, don't be too upset if you're one of those people who thinks that Stipe Miocic is undeserving of a title shot right now. One, I think he kind of is. And, I mean, that is debatable. He's coming off of a loss, but in fairness, he had beaten the guy that he lost to. So, it would have been nice to see a trilogy and have some closure. I probably would have favored Francis in that fight, if I'm being honest. Stipe's a little older. He's been slimming down quite a bit. Like, almost every time he weighs in, he weighs like 10 pounds less. I think he was in the 230s last time he weighed in for Francis Ngannou. But, you know, I would have heavily favored Francis Ngannou. And if I'm being honest, this seems extremely disrespectful to me because I'm a big fan of Stipe, and I think that he does not get the credit that he deserves. I would probably favor Jon in a Stipe matchup, and I would probably favor Ciryl Gane in a Stipe matchup. Now, the fight between Jon and Stipe is an interesting one because Stipe's got good wrestling skills, and he's got very good boxing, and he also has one of the best chins we have ever seen at heavyweight. He's like the only guy to not get cracked by Francis Ngannou and just go unconscious immediately, right? Like, he took a lot of damage in that first round, and the only reason he ended up getting finished was because he pull countered on Francis, thought he hurt him more than he really did because Francis stumbled a little bit, and then he rushed forward and Francis caught him with a huge shot. But he's got an incredible chin on him. Like, that DC knockout, after seeing them fight 2 more times after that for like what, I think it was 8.5 rounds or something like that they fought after the fact, and the shots that Stipe hit, or that DC hit him with, very similar, right? He kept using that overhook to a hook to break off the clinch. And he never got dropped again. He didn't get KO'd again. So I think he may have taken a lot of damage from the first Francis fight. And maybe he should have taken more time off in between those 2 title defenses. But it doesn't matter because that's all in the past and it happened anyways. So, it is what it is. But I honestly think that that's what they're going for business-wise, is they have an A plan, which is Jon Jones beats them both, becomes a massive pay-per-view star, and then it doesn't matter which heavyweight contenders he's fighting because their A side will be so strong in Jon Jones. Then, plan B, Ciryl Gane beats them both. He gets notoriety and the rub from both Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, 2 GOATs, of the sport. And then same thing, they can do huge pay-per-views with him, and they can go to France every time they want to do it, sell out fucking huge arenas and stuff like that. Or worst case scenario, worst case Ontario, Stipe Miocic wins, and then they've got the heavyweight goat back as their champion, and the next person to beat him will inevitably get the rub from a Stipe who has now either beaten Jon Jones or Ciryl Gane. So he'll have there will be a bit of recency bias where we'll be like, oh man, he really is the heavyweight goat. Look at that. He got knocked out by Francis and he came back and beat either of those men. If he beat either of them, it would be extremely impressive. So I think that's what they're going for. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. If you think that Stipe's deserving or undeserving. If you think that it's, completely unfair to Sergey or whatever. Just let me know your thoughts. And I will see you at the next video, which I will record right now. So like and subscribe, and I'll thank you in advance for doing so. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.